Hey everyone, Ann here again. All right, so we have talked about the mask of perfection, and now I want to talk to you about the mask of the overachiever. This one's a little bit tricky. Because, achieving things is a good thing, isn't it? Well, it is. Until, again, I think it's like the mask of perfection. When we cross that line, there's a line, I think, on all these masks. There is a line that gets crossed where we start getting our identity, and it becomes something that's more obsessive, whether we recognize it as that or not. So let me just tell you, give you a few examples of how the mask of the overachiever can show up. First, here's one that we may recognize. I'm pretty sure I did this to a certain extent, was in school, to get my parents' approval, because we didn't talk that much about stuff. I wanted to get good grades, so I always made sure that, I achieved and got good grades in school. Now, when we started staying up and, doing crazy things, considering cheating and stuff like this in order to get the grades that we want, that's definitely a line being crossed. Another way it shows up is work addiction. I think this is very... Well, it's a pretty common one for people to fall into a trap about. But it's, again, getting identity from things we achieve at work, and, what the workaholic. Now, here's where working hard and working with excellence, please hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that, doing excellent work is a bad thing. But when we start working late all the time, staying up, work becomes more important than, our family, our health, and other things. And I lived with this with my spouse, probably the last 8 to 10 years of our marriage. When work becomes more important than most anything else, and I'm just being vulnerable here, sharing that with you guys, it's an issue. It becomes an issue. So you have to look at, and be careful about the work-life balance thing, but just see, are you neglecting other important things in your life and making work your number one priority? I think that's what you need to look at with the overachieving at work, too much overachievement. Also, for overachievers, if something goes wrong, or they make a mistake, and maybe there's, a project, a deal doesn't go through or something, the highs and lows of things, like if something happens and you get really, really low, sometimes with the overachiever, the mask of overachievement, they'll go into a depression. They'll be very self-critical of who they are, because they're getting their value from achievement and overachievement. That's where they're getting their value. So they'll have high highs and low lows when it comes to that. Let me give you one more example. Unethical behavior. So are you willing to achieve, no matter what? I worked with someone who would doctor documents for mortgage files in order to get the deal done. I mean, that's a very obvious one for crossing the line, but if someone is willing to step over that line of ethical and be unethical in their behavior, that's probably, when we've got the mask of the overachievement that we're wearing versus just being, a good achiever and working with excellence. So I hope you can, kind of see the difference between those. So anyway, those are just some examples. Again, Not everybody's going to have this. Not everyone wears all of these masks, but I just want to give you some examples and ideas of how these show up so you can learn to maybe identify them in your own life, or, potentially maybe in the life of your kids or something, so you can, help them get through or understand that, there's a difference between performing with excellence and achievement, but getting your value from that is not healthy. Because whether we achieve something or not, we still are who we are. We have value and we have worth. And so I think that's the biggest thing with all of these masks, is just understanding, when we go over that line and we start getting value from these things, versus just knowing that we're valuable regardless of these things. That's the big difference. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that one. The mask of the overachiever.